Hey everybody, welcome to Rants by Michaela. I just want to let you know something. If you have ever found yourself in a situation where somebody came into your home and made you upset, uncomfortable, or feel unsafe in your own safe space and environment, and you did not match their energy, get ready to square up with them and say, you must have forgot who you talking to and whose house you're in. I'm going to remind you in just a minute, because I don't know who you think you are coming in here acting like that. Against your better judgment, because at the end of the day, you knew that there were kids in the other room and how mentally they could be negatively affected by the events that are getting ready to transpire as furniture starts moving around in that room and you are not remodeling. I just want to let you know how proud I am of you. I really do. I've been living in this apartment complex now for about 2 years. And I think about 6 months after I had moved in, another family had moved in upstairs from me. And these parents fight like cats and dogs, just hollering and cussing at each other. There have been times when I was trying to figure out if they were fighting, because I could hear a lot of thumping upstairs, but we all have vinyl floors. We don't have carpet and padding. So you can pretty much hear everything that's going on in everybody's house, and it feels amplified when they're upstairs from you. I know, because I'm on the second floor of a 3-story complex, and my downstairs neighbors can hear everything that me and my kids do, even though we feel like we're walking lightly. So there have been times I was wondering if they were like just really duking it out. And as upset as I feel about them acting so stupid, this couple has got to be a couple in their 20s, because couples in their 20s don't know when to quit. They don't know when to let it go and to just walk away. They haven't reached that level of tired yet, like those of us who are in our 30s and up. And they really enjoy this concept of breaking up to make up, because the makeup sex is so exhilarating. It's just fire. But the person I feel the most bad for is their 6-year-old son, who has to listen to them hollering and cussing and duking it out from the next room over. These units are pretty big, but the way that they lined up the room, there's not a whole lot of space from one room to the next. It's not one of those 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartments where you've got 1 bedroom and then you've got the living room and the kitchen and then the other bedroom over here. No, the 2 bedrooms are right here and the living room and the kitchen are over here. So everything is just really connected, so you can hear everything. I know this poor baby can hear everything that's going on in his parents' room right now. And I just feel so bad, because I know he must be so scared. He feels uncomfortable and unsafe in his own home. And what makes it worse is that his parents, not a stranger, not an uninvited guest of the house, are the ones who are making him feel so uncomfortable. And neither one of them is putting the argument to a stop for the sake of the mental health and the feelings of their child. And I can relate to this so much, because for those of you who don't know me, I was in a relationship with a guy for 8 years, from 2010 to 2018. And to be quite honest with you, the relationship was over before it even started. But I was desperate to be with a man who was willing to give me a family. Let me say that again. Desperate to be with a man who was willing to give me a family. Because I had dated before, and I had dated men who were of much better quality than he was. I had dated men who had good careers in the military. I had dated a man who was a fireman. I had dated a man whose mom owned a jewelry store and she makes about 6 figures a year. and he was helping her run that jewelry store, so he was always well off. I had dated a guy whose family had owned like a nice little mom and pop store, so they had a home. And when he and I were dating, he went from having a Mazda Miata to a Mercedes. Like, just, we're growing. But all of these men who were doing well career-wise and financially didn't want to get married and have kids. And that's really what I wanted, was a family. And the guy who was willing to give me a child was a guy who couldn't get away from minimum wage. Not just couldn't get away from minimum wage, but when I realized just how addicted to poverty he was and living at the lowest of the low of lifestyles that you could live in this world, I kept trying to amicably split the relationship and try to find a way to amicably co-parent, and he wasn't having it. He wanted to possess me, to own me, to control me. He wanted me to be his woman, whom he sabotaged from ever reaching any sort of level of success or comfortable lifestyle at all, so that he could have a partner in crime to live in the misery of poverty with for the rest of his life. And finally, after 8 years of no longer being able to use the excuse, I'm going to stay with him until the kids are old enough to understand, I had decided that at the age of 7, my oldest better understand. If he doesn't, I'll go ahead and I'll get him some therapy, because I was done. I was absolutely done at the type of guy he was. And for 8 years, I had walked on eggshells when what I really wanted to do was square up and tell him, get the hell away from me. But I knew how that would affect our kids. So knowing what could have potentially happened as a result of breaking up with him, I still went ahead and broke up with him in March 2018. And by late April, early May of 2018, I started dating somebody else. Because like I said, that relationship was over before it had even started. That was a stupid act of desperation to have a family. Not even to have a man, just to have a family. And the way that this guy would come to my house unannounced, decided that he was going to try to use the excuse he wanted to see his kids as a way of trying to get to me, disturb me and harass me when I was in another room trying to sleep, trying to see if he can take what he wanted from me, despite the fact that I told him, leave me alone and don't touch me. Interpret that as you will. And then decide he wanted to start a verbal altercation with me when I didn't give him what he wanted, or when I wouldn't give in to his sorry, too late advances to be a good father now, after he had been the type of person who just neglected and abandoned us and always brought us stress every time he came around. And then he would decide he wanted to start fighting with me, not fist fighting, but arguing with me and wanting to have a screaming match when our kids were in the other room. And there were so many times when that hood side just wanted to come out and be like, all right, dude, since you don't know how to act right and you're a guest in my house, because everything was always in my name and I always paid the rent. I only ever allowed him to come by in order to see the kids. But if I felt like he wasn't seeing the kids, I would tell him, get out, because I don't want you, And this is before we even broke up. There were so many times when that other side wanted to come out and say, all right, you know what? You don't know how to act right. You want to come up in my house, hooting, hollering, screaming, throwing a tantrum, destroying my home. You know what? That's all right. I'm going to remind you, you came from a woman, so you never disrespect a woman like this again. I'm going to remind you whose house you're in, that I am not a Latina who believes in being submissive and subservient to a man. I will remind you, you came out of a woman, and I will let you know that black women are not like Latina women. Keep trying me and watch what's going to happen. Oh, that side of me just kept ready to come out. But my kids were in the other room. And I had to hold back. not just for the sake of their mental health, but also for the sake of their physical health, because the police can get called, then foster care can get involved. The next thing you know, your kids are being taken away from you from being in a home where mommy and daddy were arguing, and next thing you know, they end up in a foster home where foster mommy and daddy could potentially be trying to get the kids hooked on drugs and molesting the children. And basically the foster home is a more dangerous environment than the biological parents' home from which they were taken. So I had to shut my mouth and swallow my pride and just walk out of the house. And there was one particular time I'll never forget, and I'm sorry if this rant goes long, where I tried to walk out of the house before I had a feeling that fight was getting ready to turn physical, because he was grabbing on me and I said, oh no, you got me messed up. And I pushed him away. And I called the boyfriend that I was dating at the time. And I said, hey, dude came in tripping. And he's acting up and he's acting out and he's acting stupid in front of the kids. And I was really hoping if you can come over here and help me. Now, I didn't expect him to fight him. He was a gun owner. I did not expect him to shoot him. What I really expected him to do was one of two things. I expected him to, number one, stand his ground and say, hey, Michaela's my woman now, and I will not tolerate any man disrespecting her like that. So I kind of wanted him to have a talk with him like that. And then also I wanted him to take me and the kids, get us out of the house, maybe put us in a motel or a hotel for the night, so that we didn't have to be around my ex anymore, just to kind of show that he was willing to be a protector and a provider. But when I called him, he said, listen, I can't make it over there. I've had a really bad day myself. I'm going over to a friend's house right now. I'm really sorry. So then I asked him, I said, so what am I to you? Am I your woman? Am I your friends with benefits? Am I your bank buddy? What am I? He goes, well, you're a friend. And that really was the last time I ever called him. He called me back about a month later after I went no contact, because if I'm just a friend, there's really no point in us talking. But I ended up walking around the block of my apartment 2 times before finally deciding to go back home. And when I went back home, the front door was unlocked, but it wasn't open. The back patio door, because at the time I lived in a single level unit, was wide open, and we knew about some child sex offenders that lived in the neighborhood, including one that used to like camp out right in front of my apartment in this van with no clothes on. And the reason why we know he had no clothes on is because the police had gotten called to him at one point in time. They opened the door and they quickly closed it and said, hey man, do you have a shirt or a sweater or something that you can put on? And there my kids are in the master bedroom on my bed watching my television in nothing more than their tidy whities. And my ex was nowhere to be found. And I called him up and I said, where did you go? And he goes, where'd you go? And I said, did you leave these kids in here by themselves? Have you already taken off in the car? Because I could hear the wind in the background, which means he had already hit the freeway. I said, did you take off in the car and leave these kids here unsafe by themselves because you didn't want me to take back my car after our argument? You really left these kids here by themselves, unsupervised in their tidy whities, so that you could hurry up and rush over to the car? I said, I'm going to report that car stolen if you don't come back in 20 minutes. He goes, I'll give you 1 minute. And he hangs up. And that night I learned what a jerk he was that would put our children in danger over a car that wasn't his. And I learned that I could never depend on any other man to come and save me. I will always have to save myself. But it's hard when you got to save yourself in a violent manner, knowing that your kids are in the other room listening, hearing you screaming, hearing you fighting. What would have happened if they would have seen you guys throwing hands? Like, you really got to take them into consideration. Because we all have that other side that can come out. But there are things that you need to take into consideration. And I just remember that event. I remember how it happened. And I remember everything that I did, how I bit my tongue and how I swallowed my pride for the sake of the kids. And as my neighbors are just going at it, duking it out upstairs in the bedroom, knowing that their 6-year-old baby, only child, is in the other room listening, probably crying and feeling scared and feeling heartbroken that mommy and daddy are fighting, feeling uncomfortable and unsafe in his own home. I asked my kids, hey, you guys, do you guys remember when mommy and daddy were fighting when we lived at the other apartment? And they said no. And I said, at any point in time when we lived in the other apartment, did you ever feel upset, unsafe, or uncomfortable, especially when daddy was home? And they said no. I said, do you feel upset, unsafe, or uncomfortable right now that the neighbors are upstairs fighting? They said no. Honestly, Mom, we can't even hear them. We're too busy watching TV. And I said, okay. Going against my better judgment and not letting the other guy come out really paid off, because my children are not negatively affected mentally or emotionally by the events that transpired when they were younger, because now they don't even remember. That's if they even truly heard what was going on. So trust me, even though you want to be big, bad, and tough and let them know you got me twisted, if you ever come over here disrespecting me like that again, if you got kids in the other room and they didn't hear what was going on, they didn't feel upset, unsafe, or uncomfortable, they were not removed from the house to go be put into a foster home where those parents could have been worse and could have treated your kids worse than you would have ever treated them, then you're good. You're okay. You did what you had to do. We've all been in compromising positions where we did what we had to do against our better judgment, and it paid off for the better. So let it go and learn when to swallow your pride. Anyway, that's my rant. You guys have a good one.